The glass slipped from Jayhan's fingers the moment he heard it. Not the words themselves, because words could be misheard, twisted, denied, but the voice that carried them, low and wrecked and certain, belonged to a man who had never once lied to him. "I'm addicted to it," Nile said. "The scent you only make when you look at me." The wine glass shattered against the hardwood floor, and 12 people at the Thanksgiving table turned to stare. Cranberry sauce quivered on its silver platter. Someone's fork clattered against porcelain. Jayhan's hands hung empty at his sides, trembling, red wine pooling around the shards near his feet like evidence of a crime he had not known he was committing. Nile sat 3 chairs down, his jaw tight, his knuckles white around the edge of the table. He had not meant to say it out loud. That much was obvious from the way the color drained from his face in the same instant it flooded Jayhan's. But the truth had climbed out of him like something that had been caged too long, and now it crouched between them in the horrified silence. Taven, Jayhan's husband, Nile's older brother, sat at the head of the table with his napkin still tucked into his collar. He looked at Nile, then he looked at Jayhan, then he looked back at Nile with an expression that could have frozen the Pacific. "What?" Taven said quietly. "Did you just say to my husband?" Before we dive in, let me know in the comments where you are watching from. Now back to today's story. Jayhan had always been different. Not in the ways that mattered to other people, not in the ways that made headlines or won awards, but in the one way that made him a permanent subject of medical fascination and personal embarrassment. His scent changed with his mood. Every omega had a scent profile. That was biology. Basic and immutable as a fingerprint. You were born with a base note, developed your full profile during presentation, and carried it until you died. Alphas learned to read those scents the way they read facial expressions, instinctively, constantly. Contentment had a warmth to it. Fear sharpened into something acrid. Arousal deepened and thickened. But underneath all of those shifts, the core scent remained the same. A person might detect the emotional coloring, but they would always recognize the omega underneath. Jayhan broke that rule entirely. His base scent, the one he wore when he felt nothing in particular, was cold mineral water and dried fig leaves. Clean, subtle, forgettable. His doctor had described it as neutral presenting, which was the clinical way of saying unremarkable. But the moment an emotion took hold, the scent transformed. Not just colored or shifted in intensity, transformed. Joy turned him to warm apricot and clover. Fear made him smell like burnt sugar and iron. Grief was wet clay and camphor. Anger produced something sharp and metallic, like a blade drawn across stone. And his heat scent, the one Taven knew, was magnolia and raw honey, so thick it could fill a room in minutes. The condition was called dynamic scent polymorphism. Fewer than 1 in 50,000 omegas had it. The medical literature was thin, mostly case studies and speculation. The prevailing theory suggested that the scent glands in polymorphic omegas were abnormally responsive to neurochemical fluctuations, producing entirely distinct pheromone compounds for each dominant emotional state, rather than modulating a single compound. What this meant in practice was that Jayhan's body told the truth whether he wanted it to or not. He had learned to manage it. Suppressants blunted the shifts, turned them into whispers instead of shouts. Scent-dampening patches on his wrists and behind his ears muffled the output. He had trained himself over years of mortifying incidents in high school and college to maintain a practiced emotional steadiness that kept his base scent in place. Flat affect as armor, calm as camouflage. It mostly worked. The problem was that Nile Carver made it stop working entirely. Jayhan met Taven first. That was important to remember because the order of things mattered in a story like this. The order of arrivals, the order of feelings, the order of which brother walked through the door first. Jayhan met Taven at a gallery opening in the Pearl District 3 years ago. Jayhan had 3 ceramic pieces in the show. Delicate, asymmetric bowls with crackled glaze that looked like frozen lake surfaces, and Taven had come because his firm was sponsoring the event. Taven Carver was the kind of alpha who made rooms reorganize themselves around him. Tall, composed, with a jaw that belonged on currency and a voice like a cello playing in an empty hall, he wore suits that cost more than Jayhan's monthly rent and carried the scent of starched linen and bitter grapefruit, sharp and immaculate and utterly controlled. He was a senior partner at a corporate law firm, the youngest in the firm's history, and he moved through the world with the quiet confidence of someone who had never been told no in any way that stuck. He stopped in front of Jayhan's largest piece and studied it for a long time. Then he turned to Jayhan and said, "You made this angry." Jayhan had blinked. "Excuse me?" The glaze cracking pattern, it's not random. You forced it. The piece wanted to be smooth and you made it fracture. Taven tilted his head. Why? No one had ever read his work that accurately on first glance. Jayhan's scent shifted before he could stop it, the fig leaf and mineral water warming into something brighter, curious, alive with the thrill of being seen. Taven's nostrils flared slightly. His eyes sharpened, and just like that, the hook was set. They were bonded within 8 months. The courtship was precise and deliberate, like everything Taven did. Dinners at restaurants with 3-month waiting lists, weekend trips to the coast where Taven booked the suite with the best light because he had noticed Jayhan photographing cloud formations through windows. A mating bite exchanged in Taven's apartment overlooking the Willamette River, with the city glittering below them and Jayhan's scent cycling through every emotion he possessed in rapid succession, joy and fear and want and surrender, until the room smelled like an entire season, changing in real time. The bond settled into something stable and warm. Jayhan moved into Taven's apartment. He converted the second bedroom into a ceramic studio, small but functional. Taven worked long hours, but he came home. He asked about Jayhan's pieces. He remembered the names of Jayhan's gallery contacts and the firing schedules for different clay bodies. He was not effusive, not the kind of alpha who overwhelmed with grand gestures, but he was present in ways that mattered. For the first year, it was good. Genuinely, solidly good. The second year, Taven made managing partner. The shift was gradual enough that Jayhan did not notice it happening until it had already happened, the way you don't notice a room getting darker when the sun sets because your eyes adjust along the way. Taven started coming home later. Then he started not coming home at all, sleeping at the office on a couch that he mentioned once casually, as if it were normal to have a couch at work specifically for sleeping. The dinner stopped. The coast trip stopped. The questions about Jayhan's ceramics became perfunctory, asked while Taven scrolled through emails on his phone. The answers absorbed with a distracted nod that could have been agreement or could have been nothing at all. Jayhan's scent, at home, settled into its neutral base more and more often. Mineral water and fig leaves, the scent of feeling nothing. He told himself this was temporary. Managing partner was a new role, demanding, all-consuming. Taven was building something. He needed support, not complaints. Jayhan was good at support. He had spent his whole life learning to take up less space, to keep his emotions small enough that his scent wouldn't betray him. He could do this. But the bond knew. The bond always knew. It sat in his chest like a thread pulled taut, still connected, still intact, but vibrating with a tension that had nothing to do with love and everything to do with distance. Nile came to Portland in September, 11 months into Taven's managing partner tenure, and Jayhan's world tilted on its axis without warning. He arrived on a Tuesday, which felt important later because Tuesdays were the days Taven worked latest. The days Jayhan ate dinner alone with his wheels spinning in the next room. The days the apartment felt most like a place where one person lived and another occasionally visited. Taven had mentioned his brother was relocating from Denver for a structural engineering position. He had said it the way he said most things lately, in passing, between emails. The information delivered, but the emotional context stripped away. Nile's moving here. He starts at the firm next month. You'll like him. Jayhan had not thought much about it. Then Nile knocked on the door. He was nothing like Taven, which was the first surprise. Where Taven was angular and controlled, Nile was broader, warmer, with a face that moved constantly and eyes the color of dark tea held up to light. He wore a flannel shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, and his hair was slightly too long, curling at the nape of his neck in a way that suggested he forgot to get it cut rather than chose the style. His scent rolled in ahead of him. Wet slate and crushed thyme. Earthy and grounding, and nothing like the crisp, laundered precision of his older brother. You must be Jayhan. He grinned, lopsided, and held up a bottle of wine. Taven said I should bring something expensive. I brought something I actually like instead. Jayhan laughed. The sound surprised him. It had been weeks since he had laughed, and his scent betrayed the surprise, flickering from its neutral base into that warm apricot and clover before he caught it and pulled it back. Nile's grin faltered for just a fraction of a second. His nostrils flared. Then the grin returned, wider now, and he stepped inside. That was the beginning, though Jayhan would not recognize it as such for months. Not until the Thanksgiving dinner. Not until the wine glass shattered. Nile was supposed to stay with them for 2 weeks while he found an apartment. 2 weeks became 3 when the unit he had lined up fell through. 3 became 5 when the second option had a mold problem that his structural engineer's eye caught immediately. By the 6th week, Jayhan had stopped asking when Nile was leaving because the question felt wrong in his mouth, like a word in a language he was pretending to speak. The thing about Nile was that he was present in the way Taven used to be, but had stopped being. He noticed things. He noticed that Jayhan drank his coffee black in the morning, but switched to cream in the afternoon. He noticed that Jayhan's hands ached after long throwing sessions and left a tube of arnica cream on the studio counter without comment. He noticed that the apartment was too quiet on Tuesday and Thursday nights, and started showing up with takeout containers and a terrible documentary streaming habit that he narrated with increasingly absurd commentary until Jayhan was laughing so hard his ribs hurt. That's not how bridges work, Nile would say, pointing at the screen with a chopstick. That's not how anything works. That bridge would kill people. That bridge is a murder weapon. I need to write a letter. To whom? To the bridge. You want to write a letter to a bridge, a strongly worded letter, to a homicidal bridge. Yes. Jayhan's scent would shift and hold, apricot and clover, warm and bright and real, and Nile would get quiet for a moment, just a moment, his eyes dropping to the coffee table before he launched into his next absurd critique. Jayhan did not notice the pattern. He did not notice that his scent only held that particular joy note for extended periods when Nile was in the room. He did not notice that it flickered back to neutral within minutes of Nile leaving, like a light switched off. He did not notice because he was not paying attention to himself. He was paying attention to the ache in his bond, the emails from gallery owners he was afraid to open, the clay that cracked wrong on his wheel 3 days running. His own scent was the last thing on his radar, but Nile noticed. Nile, who had a structural engineer's obsession with patterns and load-bearing points, who could look at a building and tell you where the stress fractures would appear in 20 years, noticed every shift, every flicker, every return to baseline. And he noticed one more thing, a scent Jayhan made that was none of the cataloged ones. Not joy, not fear, not grief, not anger, not the magnolia of heat, something else entirely. Black currant and woodsmoke after rain, dark and lush and aching, a scent like longing given form. And it only ever appeared, when Jayhan looked directly at him. Nile kept this knowledge to himself for 3 months. He held it like a coal in his palm, burning and impossible to set down, and he said nothing. He found an apartment. He moved out. He came to dinner on Wednesdays because Taven insisted, and on those Wednesday nights he sat across the table from his brother's husband and breathed shallowly and counted the minutes until he could leave and stand in the cold air outside and let his own scent, sour with restraint and wanting, dissipate into the Portland rain. It was the right thing to do. The moral thing. Jayhan was his brother's bonded mate. The scent meant nothing, or it meant something Jayhan himself did not understand, and either way it was not Nile's to claim or even acknowledge. He was a guest in their lives. He owed Taven loyalty. He owed Jayhan the dignity of not being told that his body was broadcasting something his mind had not yet caught up to. But the coal kept burning. October passed. The leaves in Forest Park turned copper and rust. Jayhan had a kiln misfire that destroyed an entire commission. 3 months of work gone in a single overheated night, and the loss sent his scent spiraling into wet clay and camphor for days. Taven was in Seattle for a merger and did not come home. Nile brought soup to the studio on a Saturday morning, found Jayhan sitting on the floor surrounded by cracked and blackened shards, and sat down beside him without a word. They sat there for an hour. Nile did not tell him it would be okay, did not offer solutions or silver linings or any of the optimistic platitudes that people reach for when they cannot tolerate someone else's grief. He sat with the grief in it, and when Jayhan's scent finally shifted from anguish back to neutral, Nile said, "Show me what they were supposed to be." Jayhan looked at him, just looked, and the black currant and woodsmoke bloomed between them like a door opening into a room neither of them was supposed to enter. Nile stood up. "I should go." "You don't have to." "I really do." He left, and Jayhan sat alone with the shards and the lingering ghost of a scent he could not explain, a scent he did not even know he was making, and he felt the absence like a temperature drop. November arrived. The kiln was repaired. Jayhan started the commission again from scratch, and this time the forms came different, more angular, with deliberate cracks built into the design rather than feared. He was doing his best work. He was also falling apart. The bond with Taven had gone quiet. Not dead, not severed. Quiet, the way a phone line goes quiet when someone puts you on hold and you can hear the static, but you know no one is listening. Taven came home, but he came home like a man returning a library book, functionally, out of obligation, with no particular attachment to the contents. He kissed Jayhan on the forehead when he left in the morning. He asked, "How was your day?" without waiting for the full answer. He slept on his side of the bed with a careful margin of empty space between them that Jayhan did not remember negotiating. Jayhan's heat came in the 3rd week of November, 5 days before Thanksgiving. The magnolia and raw honey scent filled the apartment like a wave, and Taven was there for it, attentive and careful and thorough in the way a man is thorough when he is fulfilling a responsibility. He held Jayhan through the worst of the fever. He brought water and changed the sheets and stayed close enough that the bond hummed with proximity. But there was a mechanical quality to his care that Jayhan felt even through the haze, a going through the motions steadiness that was technically perfect and emotionally hollow. On the 2nd night of his heat, curled against Taven's chest with his temperature spiking, Jayhan whispered, "Do you still want me?" "You're my mate," Taven said. Which was not an answer. The heat broke on the 4th day, and Taven went back to work the same morning. Jayhan lay in the wreckage of their nest, surrounded by pillows and blankets that smelled like starched linen and magnolia, and stared at the ceiling until his scent settled back to mineral water and fig leaves. Neutral. Empty. The scent of a man who had learned to stop feeling so his body would stop telling the truth. Thanksgiving was at the Carver family home, a craftsman house in Selwood that Taven and Nile's parents had owned for 30 years. Dr. Emmy Carver, their mother, was a retired pediatrician who still smelled like clean cotton and orange peel, even in her 70s. Their father, Juan, had been a high school principal before retirement, an alpha whose scent had mellowed with age into something like old books and bergamot. The family was small, the guest list padded with a few neighbors and Emmy's bridge club friends, but the table was full and the house was warm, and Jayhan had been looking forward to it for weeks because this, at least, felt like something real. He dressed carefully, applied his scent patches, took his suppressants, told himself to be steady, be neutral, be the version of himself that did not give anything away. Taven drove them, one hand on the wheel, the other checking his phone at red lights, and Jayhan watched the rain streak the passenger window and said nothing. Nile was already there when they arrived. He was in the kitchen helping Emmy with the cranberry sauce, his sleeves pushed up, a dish towel slung over one shoulder, laughing at something his mother had said. When he looked up and saw Jayhan in the doorway, the laugh died, and something raw and undefended passed across his face before he caught it. 1 second. Maybe less, but Jayhan saw it, and his scent shifted. He felt it happen, that involuntary bloom, something dark and sweet rising from his skin before his conscious mind could intervene. He did not know what it was, did not know that it was black currant and woodsmoke, did not know that it was the scent of a longing so deep it had built its own pheromone signature. He only knew that his patches were not containing it and that Nile had gone very still. Jayhan? Nile's voice was even, careful. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. Jayhan pulled his sleeves down over his wrists. A useless gesture. The scent was coming from everywhere now, from his neck glands, from behind his ears, from the places where emotion lived closest to the skin. I brought pie. He brought pie, Emmy said warmly, taking the dish from Jayhan's hands. Come in, come in. Nile finished the sauce. Taven, your father wants to talk to you about the gutters. The choreography of family absorbed them. Taven disappeared into the living room with Juan. Jayhan set the table. Nile stirred cranberry sauce with the focus of a man diffusing a bomb. For an hour, everything held. Conversation flowed. Dishes appeared. Chairs filled. Jayhan's scent calmed back to neutral as the social activity engaged enough of his attention to keep the emotional shifts at bay. Then, dinner started, and Nile was seated 3 chairs away, and every time Jayhan glanced down the table, the black currant bloomed. He could see Nile fighting it. Nile's jaw tightened every time the scent hit him. He breathed through his mouth instead of his nose. His hand gripped his water glass until the tendons stood out. Nile ate without tasting. He answered questions in clipped, polite sentences. He did not look at Jayhan. Jayhan told himself to stop looking. He told himself that Nile was uncomfortable, probably from the crowded room and the mingling of too many scents and the holiday stress. He told himself it had nothing to do with him, but he kept looking, and the black currant kept rising. It was Emmy who noticed. She was sitting beside Nile, and Jayhan saw her lean over and murmur something, saw Nile shake his head, saw Emmy's hand touch Nile's arm, with the gentle concern of a mother who could read her children the way alphas read scent. Nile pulled his arm away. Not rudely, but sharply, like the touch burned. Taven was talking to the neighbor on his left about property taxes. The main course was cleared. Dessert was served. Coffee poured. The conversation fragmented into smaller clusters, and in the lull between the pumpkin pie and the second round of coffee, while Jayhan was reaching for the wine bottle to refill his glass, Nile spoke. He did not raise his voice. He did not stand up or make a scene. He spoke in a tone that sounded like surrender, like something cracking open that had been held together too long by sheer force, and the words cut through the ambient chatter with the precision of a scalpel. I'm addicted to it. The scent you only make when you look at me. The glass slipped. The shatter reset the room. Every head turned. Every conversation stopped. Jayhan stood with wine pooling at his feet and his scent cycling through shock, burnt sugar and iron, then confusion, then something unreadable that no one at the table had a name for. Nile looked sick. The color had left his face entirely, and his scent, that grounding wet slate and crushed thyme, had turned sharp with distress. He pushed back from the table. "I'm sorry." His voice was hoarse. "I didn't mean to say that out loud." "But you said it." Taven's voice came from the head of the table, quiet and precise, the way he sounded in depositions when he was about to dismantle someone's testimony. His scent had gone hard, the linen scent stripped away, leaving only the bitter grapefruit, astringent and warning. "You said it at my family's table in front of my mother, to my husband." "Taven." Nile's hands were shaking. "Explain." One word. Alpha command threaded through it, subtle but unmistakable, and even Jayhan felt it pull at something in his chest. Nile closed his eyes. When he opened them, he looked at Jayhan, not Taven. "I'll leave. I'll go back to Denver. I'll make this right." "You'll explain first." "Taven, please." Emmy's voice, tight with alarm. "Not here. Not like this." But Taven was already standing, his napkin dropping to the table, his full attention locked on his brother with an intensity that made the air in the room compress. The other guests sat frozen, forks in hand, the polite fiction of a normal holiday calcifying into something they would talk about for years. Jayhan's scent was everywhere. The patches had failed completely, overwhelmed by the cascade of emotions tearing through him. The room filled with shifting layers, burnt sugar, iron, wet clay, and underneath it all, faint but persistent, the black currant that had started the fire. He did not know what that scent meant. He did not understand why his body was producing it, why it only happened when he looked at Nile, why it felt like hunger, like vertigo, like reaching for a hand he had no right to hold. He only knew that it was real, and that Nile had named it before he could. Ugh. "Everyone." Jayhan's voice came out steadier than he expected. "Could you give us the room, please?" Emmy stood immediately, ushering the bridge club friends and neighbors toward the living room with the practiced efficiency of a woman who had managed children's tantrums for 30 years. Juan went with her, his hand on her back, his scent calm but watchful. The dining room emptied in 90 seconds, leaving 3 men, 2 brothers, and the Omega caught between them, standing in a room that smelled like a war. Jayhan looked at Taven, then at Nile, then back at Taven. "I don't understand what just happened," Jayhan said. "I think you do." Taven's voice was ice. "I don't. I swear I don't." "Your scent changes when you look at my brother." Taven spoke the words with the detachment of a man reading charges. "You produce a specific pheromone response that you do not produce for anyone else, including me. And my brother has apparently been cataloging this response for long enough to describe it at the dinner table." "It's not like that," Nile said. "Then what is it like? Tell me. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like my brother is in love with my husband." The word landed like a dropped anchor. In love. Jayhan's knees almost gave out. His scent spiked into something chaotic. Black currant and burnt sugar and apricot and iron all tangled together. A sensory overload that made both alphas flinch. "I'm not," Nile said. "I wouldn't." "You just told a room full of people that you're addicted to his scent." "I didn't mean to." "That's worse." Taven's control was cracking now, the composure fracturing like one of Jayhan's deliberately flawed bowls. "That means you can't control it. That means it's been building long enough to become involuntary." "How long, Nile?" Silence. "How long?" "Since September," Nile whispered. "Since the day I moved in." Taven made a sound that was not quite a laugh and not quite a growl. He pressed both hands flat against the table and leaned forward, the bitter grapefruit of his scent now edged with something darker, something possessive and wounded. "Get out of this house." "Taven, let me explain. Get out." Now. Nile looked at Jayhan one more time. His expression held everything his words could not. Apology and shame and a longing so visible it made Jayhan's chest constrict. Then he turned and walked out through the kitchen door, and the wet slate and time faded with him. And Jayhan was left standing in a room that smelled like the aftermath of something catastrophic, with a husband who would not look at him. Taven. Don't. I didn't know. I swear I had no idea my scent was doing that. Your scent does what your emotions tell it to do. Taven straightened slowly. His face had gone blank, professionally neutral, the expression he wore in courtrooms when the evidence was damning and the verdict was clear. That's what polymorphism means, Jayhan. Your body doesn't lie. It can't. I'm not in love with your brother. Then explain the scent. I can't. I don't even know what it is. Black currant, Taven said quietly. And woodsmoke. He knows your scent better than I do. Do you understand what that tells me? Jayhan's breath caught. Because Taven was right. In 3 years of being bonded, Taven had learned the major shifts, the joy scent, the grief scent, the magnolia of heat, but he had never cataloged the subtleties, never mapped the full range, never paid close enough attention to detect a scent that only appeared in specific emotional conditions. And Nile, in 3 months, had identified one Taven had never noticed. That tells you he pays attention, Jayhan said. The words fell out before he could measure them, and he heard the implication. Land. Taven's expression did not change, but his scent told the truth. His face would not. The bitter grapefruit curdled into something sharp and acrid, the pheromone signature of an alpha who had been struck in a place that had no armor. We're leaving. Taven picked up his coat from the chair. We haven't said goodbye to your parents. We're leaving now. They drove home in silence. Jayhan sat in the passenger seat with his hands in his lap, and his scent pulled as tight as he could manage. Mineral water and fig leaves, neutral, controlled. But the bond pulsed between them, a low, persistent frequency that carried Taven's hurt like a radio signal Jayhan could not turn off. At home, Taven went to his office and closed the door. Jayhan stood in the kitchen for a long time, listening to the rain against the windows, smelling the lingering traces of starched linen and grapefruit and the ghost of wet slate and time that still clung to the couch cushions from Nile's last visit. He pulled out his phone. No messages from Nile. No messages from Emmy. One text from Taven's father, sent 10 minutes ago. Are you two all right? Jayhan typed, We're home. I'm sorry about dinner. Juan's reply was immediate. Don't apologize. We'll talk when things are calmer. Take care of each other tonight. Jayhan set the phone down and pressed the heels of his hands against his eyes. Take care of each other, as if care were something this family still knew how to do. He wanted to go to the office, wanted to knock on the door and sit beside Taven and ask the questions that had been building for months. Why did you stop coming home? When did I become something you managed instead of loved? Do you still smell me at all, or have I become as neutral to you as I am to myself? But those questions had been there before, Nile. Before the wine glass shattered, before the black currant and woodsmoke entered the lexicon of their marriage. And Jayhan had not asked them then, which meant something, which meant his silence had been a choice, which meant the cracks had been there long before anyone confessed anything. He cleaned the kitchen instead, wiped down counters that were already clean, loaded the dishwasher, rearranged the spice rack. Small, controlled actions that kept his hands busy and his scent flat and his mind far away from the question he was not ready to answer, the one Taven had asked without asking, the one that hovered in the dark space between what the body knows and what the mind admits. Why does my scent change when I look at Nile Carver? He went to bed at midnight. Taven was still in the office. The bond told Jayhan that his husband was awake, alert, wounded, and very far away. Jayhan pulled the blankets up and lay in the dark and listened to the rain and told himself that this was a problem he could solve. a misunderstanding he could explain, a crack he could fill with effort and apology, and the deliberate reconstruction of something that had been neglected but not destroyed. The ceiling stared back at him, unconvinced. Morning came gray and cold. Taven was in the kitchen when Jayhan emerged, already dressed for work, his coffee untouched. He looked like he had not slept. "We need to talk," Jayhan said. "Not now. I have the Whitfield closing today." "Taven, tonight. I'll be home by 7. He was not home by 7. He was not home by 9. At 10:15, Jayhan's phone lit up with a text. "Closing ran late. Don't wait up." Jayhan stared at the message for a long time. Then he put on his coat and drove to his studio. The studio was not at the apartment anymore. 3 months ago, Jayhan had signed a lease on a small commercial space in an industrial district near the river, an old brick building with high ceilings and good ventilation, and the kind of raw, unfinished character that made his hands itch to fill it with work. The rent was steep for what it was, but Taven had encouraged it, or at least had not discouraged it, which in the language of their marriage had become the same thing. The problem was the renovation. The space needed electrical upgrades, ventilation modifications for the kiln, and structural reinforcement for the shelving that would hold hundreds of pounds of finished work. Jayhan had hired a contractor who had done a mediocre job and then disappeared. The work was half done. The kiln sat unconnected, the shelves listed at an angle that made Jayhan nervous every time he walked past them. Nile had offered to help. Of course he had. He was a structural engineer. The shelving problem was something he could solve in an afternoon, and the ventilation modifications were well within his expertise. Jayhan had accepted because it was practical, because Taven showed no interest in the studio beyond the line item on their joint budget, and because Nile made the work feel fun rather than burdensome. They had spent 3 Saturdays in October pulling cable and reinforcing joists and arguing about load calculations while covered in plaster dust and drinking gas station coffee. Those Saturdays were some of the best days Jayhan had had in a year. He knew that now. Knew it the way you know, looking back, that the afternoon you felt most alive was also the afternoon you should have been most careful. He unlocked the studio door and turned on the lights. The space greeted him with the smell of raw clay and metal and the faint, persistent note of wet slate and crushed time that had soaked into the brick walls over those 3 Saturdays and refused to leave. He sat at his wheel and did not turn it on. He sat there in the quiet, in the cold, in the scent of Nile that lived in his walls, and he let himself feel the thing he had been refusing to feel. Something had shifted in him. Something was shifting still, and his body, his traitorous, truthful, polymorphic body, had been telling the world about it for months, while his mind insisted on silence. His phone buzzed. He expected Taven. It was Nile. "I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I just need you to know I'm sorry. I never wanted to put you in this position. I'll keep my distance. Whatever you need." Jayhan read the message 3 times. His scent filled the studio, black currant and wood smoke after rain, thick and undeniable in the empty space. He typed a reply, deleted it, typed another, deleted that, and finally set the phone face down on the wheel and pressed his clay-stained fingers against his closed eyes. The problem was not the scent. The problem was that the scent was honest, and Jayhan was not ready to be honest, not with Nile, not with Taven, and least of all with himself. If you're enjoying the story, drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from. I read every single one. All right, let's get back to the story. 3 days passed. Taven came home at normal hours but existed in a parallel dimension, physically present but emotionally somewhere Jayhan could not follow. They ate dinner together in careful silence. They slept in the same bed with the same careful margin of space. They did not talk about Thanksgiving. On the 4th day, Jayhan called his doctor. Dr. Lena Park had been managing Jayhan's polymorphism since his presentation at 14. She was a beta, which Jayhan had always appreciated. her nose too weak to read the shifts in real time, which meant their sessions were based on conversation rather than involuntary disclosure. He trusted her with things he trusted no one else with, including, now, this. "I'm producing a scent I can't identify," Jayhan said. He was sitting in her office, hands wrapped around a paper cup of water, his scent patches freshly applied. "It only happens in the presence of a specific person." "Doctor." Park leaned back in her chair. "Describe it." "Dark, sweet but not sugary, like fruit and smoke. And it's mood-dependent like your other shifts?" "I think so, but I don't know which mood. It doesn't match any of my cataloged responses." "That's unusual but not unprecedented." She pulled up his file on her tablet. "In polymorphic omegas, new scent signatures can emerge when a new dominant emotional state develops for the first time. You've had your current catalog since presentation, which means your emotional landscape has been relatively stable since adolescence. If something new is emerging, it suggests you're experiencing an emotion at a depth or specificity you haven't experienced before." "What kind of emotion?" "That's what I can't tell you from the outside. The scent is a symptom, not a diagnosis. Only you can identify what you're feeling when it occurs." She paused. "You said it happens with a specific person. Is it your mate?" "No." The word sat between them. Sat. "Is it someone you have regular contact with?" "My husband's brother." Dr. Park's expression remained neutral, but Jayhan saw her posture shift, the subtle straightening that meant she was choosing her next words carefully. "Jayhan, I want to be direct with you. New scent emergence in a bonded omega is rare. It almost always indicates a significant emotional development that the bond itself isn't fulfilling. That doesn't necessarily mean what you're afraid it means. It could be intense friendship, a mentor bond, or a familial attachment that's registered as novel because of proximity. But I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't tell you that the most common trigger for new scent emergence in bonded omegas is the development of feelings for a secondary partner." "I'm not having an affair?" "I didn't say you were." "I haven't done anything." "I know. Your scent did it for you." She said this gently. "That's the particular cruelty of polymorphism, Jayhan. You don't get to decide when the truth comes out." He left her office and sat in his car for 20 minutes. Mineral water and fig leaves, forcibly neutral, while the rain drummed on the roof and Dr. Park's words circled in his head like water finding a drain. The most common trigger for new scent emergence in bonded omegas is the development of feelings for a secondary partner. He drove to the studio. He threw clay for 4 hours straight, and every piece came out angular and sharp, with fracture lines that he built in deliberately, and he did not let himself think about what that meant. When he finally stopped, his arms aching, his apron streaked with slip, his phone showed 2 messages. "Taven. Working late again. Sorry. Nile. I hope you're okay. I'll respect whatever boundary you set." He answered Taven first. "Okay. See you when you get home." Then he stared at Nile's message and felt his scent bloom, dark and sweet and completely beyond his control, in the empty studio where no one could smell it but him. He did not answer Nile. He told himself that not answering was the same as setting a boundary. He told himself that silence was a kind of clarity. He told himself that the scent would fade if he starved it of contact, that the body could be overruled if the mind was firm enough, that he loved Taven, that the bond was real, that 3 years of marriage and a mating bite on his neck meant more than 3 months of laughter and gas station coffee, and a scent that defied his entire catalog. He told himself a lot of things alone in that studio, with wet slate and crushed thyme in the walls and black currant on his own skin. None of them smelled like the truth. A week after Thanksgiving, Taven finally talked. Not about the dinner. Not about Nile. He came home on a Wednesday evening, set his briefcase down, and said, "I think you should stop working at the studio for a while." Jayhan, who was glazing a test tile at the kitchen counter, looked up. "What?" "The studio. The lease is a significant expense, and with the renovation incomplete, it's not functional. I think we should reassess whether it's the right investment." The renovation is almost done. Because my brother was doing the work. Taven's voice was even, but the subtext landed like a slap. That arrangement is obviously no longer appropriate. I can hire someone else to finish it. Or we can reconsider the whole thing. You were productive here. The home studio worked fine. The home studio is 8 feet by 10. I can't fire the kiln without setting off the smoke detector. Then we'll upgrade the ventilation. Taven, the whole point of the commercial space was to have room to grow, to take bigger commissions, to build something. To build something. He repeated the words as if examining them for flaws. And was my brother part of that building plan? There it was. The real conversation, dressed up as a financial discussion. The way Taven always dressed his feelings in logic and strategy so he never had to admit he was hurt. Nile helped with the renovation, because he's a structural engineer and the contractor disappeared. That's all. That's all. Yes. Taven studied him. His scent was carefully controlled, linen and grapefruit, the professional version of himself that he wore like armor. But underneath, Jayhan could feel the bond transmitting something raw, something Taven would never put into words, because words could be used as evidence. I want you to stop seeing him, Taven said. He's your brother. He comes to Wednesday dinners. Not anymore. I've told him those are canceled. You canceled family dinner without asking me? I'm asking you to support the decision. You're telling me to support the decision. There's a difference. Something flickered across Taven's face. Not anger, exactly, but the recognition that Jayhan had seen through the framing, had identified the command wearing a request's clothing. Taven was not accustomed to being caught. Fine. Taven's jaw tightened. I'm telling you, I don't want my brother in our home. I don't want him at your studio. I don't want him within scenting distance of you until I've decided how to handle this. How to handle this. Jayhan set down the tile. His hands were shaking and he pressed them flat against the counter to hide it. This is your brother. This is our marriage. You don't handle those things, Taven. You show up for them. The words hung in the air. Jayhan's scent cracked, the neutral base fracturing into something sharp, metallic, the blade-on stone of anger he rarely let surface. Taven's nostrils flared. And when exactly? Taven said, his voice dropping to a register that made the hair on Jayhan's arms rise. Did you decide I wasn't showing up? When you stopped coming home. Silence. The kind that fills a room the way water fills a sinking ship, from the bottom up, heavy and rising. I come home every night. You come to the apartment every night. That's not the same thing. Taven stared at him. For one raw, unguarded moment, the courtroom mask slipped, and Jayhan saw the man underneath, exhausted, afraid, standing in the ruins of a marriage he had not realized he was letting crumble. His scent flickered, the grapefruit softening, the linen losing its starch. Exhaustion and fear showing through the professional sheen. Then the mask rebuilt itself, layer by careful layer, and Taven picked up his briefcase. I'll be in my office. Don't wait up. The door closed. Jayhan stood alone in the kitchen, his anger scent dissipating, leaving behind the mineral water and fig leaves that meant he had shut everything down. All of it. Every feeling, every response, every honest impulse his body tried to produce. He was so tired of being neutral. His phone sat on the counter. Nile's last message still unanswered, 8 days old now. I'll respect whatever boundary you set. Jayhan picked up the phone. His thumb hovered over the screen. His scent, despite everything, shifted. Black currant, woodsmoke, rain. He typed 5 words and pressed send before the rational part of his brain could intervene. The studio needs finishing. Saturday? Nile's reply came in 30 seconds. I'll be there at 9. Jayhan deleted both messages, put the phone in his pocket, and went to bed. He lay in the dark and listened for Taven's footsteps, and when they came, hours later, careful and quiet, he pretended to be asleep. The bond stretched between them, thin and taut and loaded with everything neither of them would say. And in the studio across town, the walls breathed wet slate and time. Waiting. Saturday morning broke cold and silver, the kind of Portland December light that made everything look like a photograph drained of color. Jayhan arrived at the studio at 8:30, an hour early, and spent the time cleaning surfaces that were already clean. Rearranging tools, adjusting the angle of the work lamp over his wheel. His scent patches were fresh. His suppressants were doubled. He had rehearsed in the shower that morning what he would say. Professional, boundaried. The renovation needs to be finished. That's the only reason you're here. Nile knocked at 9 exactly. Jayhan opened the door and every rehearsed sentence evaporated. Nile stood on the threshold with a toolbox in one hand and 2 coffees balanced in the other, and the wet slate and crushed time of his scent poured into the studio like water finding a crack in concrete. He looked terrible. Shadows carved under his eyes, a tension in his shoulders that suggested he had not slept well in days. But his voice, when he spoke, was steady. Where did we leave off? The ventilation hood, right? Jayhan took the coffee. Their fingers brushed, and his scent flickered before he caught it. The ventilation hood, and the shelving braces on the east wall. Right, I'll start with the hood. Less conversation required. They worked in silence for the first hour. Nile up on a ladder adjusting ductwork. Jayhan at the kiln, reconnecting gas lines according to the manual, his hands busy with wrenches and fittings, while his mind ran laps around the question he could not stop asking himself. Why did I invite him here? The answer he wanted was practical. The studio needed to be finished. Nile had the expertise. Hiring another contractor would take weeks and cost money Jayhan did not have. These were rational reasons, defensible reasons, the kind of reasons Taven would construct and present in a courtroom. The answer his scent was giving, rising from his skin in dark current waves despite the doubled suppressants, was different. Hand me the 4-inch clamp, Nile called from the ladder. Jayhan brought it to him. Standing at the base of the ladder, looking up, he could see the line of Nile's jaw, the tendons in his forearms where he gripped the ductwork, the way his shirt had ridden up to expose a strip of skin above his belt. Nile glanced down to take the clamp and froze. Their eyes met. The black current hit the room like a wave breaking. Nile closed his eyes, drew a slow breath through his mouth. Jayhan, I know. You're doing it again. I know. Nile came down the ladder, one careful rung at a time. He set the clamp on the work table and stood with his back to Jayhan, both hands braced on the edge of the table, his head bowed. I told myself I could do this, he said. Come here, finish the work, keep my hands busy and my mouth shut, but you have to stop looking at me like that. I'm not doing it on purpose. I know you're not. That's what makes it impossible. He turned around. His eyes were dark and liquid and full of a misery that made Jayhan's chest crack open. Do you have any idea what that scent does to me? Every alpha in a room can smell it when it hits. Your body is producing a pheromone response that is specifically, chemically calibrated to me, not to alphas in general, to me. I had it tested. Jayhan's breath stopped. You had it tested? I collected a sample from my shirt after the last time I was here, took it to a pheromone specialist. She said the compound structure matches what polymorphic omegas produce when they encounter a compatible mate. His voice cracked on the last word. A compatible mate, Jayhan. Not a friend. Not a brother-in-law. A mate. The word dropped between them like a stone into still water, and the ripples moved outward in every direction. I'm already mated, Jayhan said. His voice sounded distant, as if someone else were speaking from across the room. I know. Taven is your brother. I know that too. Then why are you telling me this? Nile's jaw tightened. Because you invited me here. Because you deleted the messages. Because you're standing 3 feet away from me, producing a scent that my body recognizes as home, and I have spent 3 months trying to be a decent person about it. And I am running out of room. Jayhan took a step back. His heel hit the base of the wheel, and he steadied himself against it. The studio was too small. The walls were too close. Nile's scent was everywhere, mingling with the black currant until the air itself felt charged, heavy, like the moment before a storm opens. I love my husband. Jayhan said it firmly, deliberately, as if staking a claim on territory that was slipping. I believe you. Nile's voice was hoarse. But your body is telling a different story, and I don't know which one is true. My body doesn't get to decide. It already has. That's what polymorphism means. Your scent doesn't lie. Stop quoting my own biology back to me. Then stop pretending it doesn't exist. Jayhan's anger scent spiked, blade on stone, sharp enough that Nile flinched. But underneath the anger, still present, still undeniable, the black currant lingered. Jayhan could feel it on his own skin, could smell the 2 scents layered together, fury and longing braided into a knot that his vocabulary had never needed a word for. I think you should go, Jayhan said. Nile picked up his toolbox. At the door, he paused. For what it's worth, I never wanted this. You're my brother's husband. I came to Portland to be closer to my family, not to destroy it. His hand tightened on the doorframe. But I can't unfeel what I feel, and neither can you. The door closed behind him. The wet slate faded. The studio was quiet again, just clay and cold air and the ghost of something that should never have existed, but did. Jayhan sat at his wheel and pressed his forehead to the cold metal surface and stayed there until his scent settled back to mineral water and fig leaves. Neutral, empty. The scent of a man who had closed every door his body kept trying to open. He did not tell Taven about Saturday. He drove home, showered, scrubbed the studio smell from his skin, and when Taven asked how his day was, Jayhan said, I threw some new forms. They came out well. It was not a lie. He had thrown forms the previous Thursday. The tense was ambiguous. The omission was not. Taven nodded without looking up from his laptop. Good. I'm glad the studio is working out. The irony was so thick, Jayhan almost choked on it. December settled over Portland in layers of rain and gray. Jayhan threw himself into his commission work. The angular, deliberately fractured pieces were generating interest. A gallery in Alberta Street wanted to feature them in a group show in February, and the work became his refuge, the one space where his hands did what his mind intended without his body adding commentary. But the bond was deteriorating. Not breaking, because mating bonds did not break without medical intervention or catastrophic trauma, but thinning, stretching. The connection between him and Taven becoming more like a wire under tension than a living thing. Jayhan could still feel Taven through it, could sense his presence and his general emotional state, but the specifics had gone fuzzy. He could not tell anymore if Taven was tired or angry, could not distinguish between his husband's concentration and his indifference. The bond was becoming static. He knew Taven felt it too. Knew it from the way Taven's scent hardened every time they were in the same room, the linen stiffening, the grapefruit turning bitter. Knew it from the way Taven had started sleeping with his back to Jayhan, the careful margin of space between them widening incrementally, night by night, until Jayhan could have fit a third body in the gap without touching either side. On a Wednesday in mid-December, 2 weeks after the studio meeting, Jayhan came home from a firing session to find Taven sitting at the kitchen table with his phone in his hand and an expression that made Jayhan's blood go cold. Your studio's security system sends alerts to our shared cloud. Taven's voice was perfectly flat. I didn't set that up. You did when you were worried about the half-finished renovation. You probably forgot. Jayhan had forgotten. The motion sensor logged 2 entries on Saturday. One at 8:30. One at 9. Taven set the phone down. You told me you spent the day throwing forms. I did throw forms. After my brother left? The silence that followed was the loudest thing Jayhan had ever heard. He was there to finish the ventilation work, Jayhan said. The words tasted like ash. I asked you not to see him. You told me not to see him. I told you I needed the studio finished. And you chose his help over our agreement. There was no agreement, Taven. There was a command. You issued a command and expected compliance, the same way you've been issuing commands for the past year. Come home by 7, but actually don't. Let's talk tonight, but actually I'll work late. You're my mate, but actually I'll treat you like a tenant who shares my bed. He was shaking. His scent was cycling, anger and grief and burnt sugar twisting together, and Taven's nostrils flared with each shift, reading every emotion Jayhan could not hide. Don't deflect. Taven stood. His alpha scent expanded to fill the kitchen. Grapefruit turned acrid, linen stripped to raw starch. This isn't about our marriage. This is about you seeing my brother behind my back. It's about both. It's always been about both, and you don't want to see that because admitting the marriage has problems means admitting you caused them. I caused them? Taven's voice dropped, dangerous. I'm not the one who sent changes for another alpha. No, you're the one who sent stopped changing for me at all. The hit landed. Jayhan saw it register, saw Taven's composure fracture along the same lines as one of his ceramic bowls, the same deliberate cracks he built into his art, because he understood that breaking could be beautiful if it was honest. But Taven was not beautiful when he broke. He was devastated. The grapefruit scent collapsed into something raw and wounded, and for one moment Jayhan saw the man underneath the managing partner, the man who had once looked at a cracked glaze and understood the violence in it, the man who had courted him with light and attention and the quiet certainty that Jayhan was worth knowing. That man looked at Jayhan now and said, "Do you want him?" "I don't know. That's not good enough." "I know it's not, but it's the truth, and you've spent a year avoiding the truth, so maybe you can tolerate hearing it for once." Taven picked up his keys. "I'm going to the office." "It's 11 at night." "I'm going to the office, Jayhan. You're running. And you're standing in my kitchen smelling like my brother's time and telling me you don't know if you want him. So yes, I'm running. Because if I stay, I'll say something I can't take back." The door closed. The car started. The headlights swept across the kitchen ceiling and then vanished, and Jayhan stood alone in the grapefruit stale air of his own apartment and felt the bond stretch thinner than it had ever been. He could still feel Taven on the other end. Hurt. Moving. Getting farther away with every second. He called Nile. It rang twice. "Jayhan? He found out you were at the studio." Silence. He left. He went to the office. He asked me if I want you, and I told him I don't know. Nile exhaled. It was a long, ragged sound. "What do you need right now?" "I need to not be in this apartment." "Come to my place. I'll make tea. Nothing happens. I promise." "Nile, I can't come to your apartment." "Then tell me where, and I'll meet you." "I can't see you either. That's the problem. Every time I see you, my body tells the truth, and my marriage gets worse." His voice cracked. "I called you because you're the only person I wanted to talk to. And that's the answer to the question Taven asked, and I hate it." Nile was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Jayhan, listen to me. I'm going to say this once, and then I'm going to hang up, and you're going to think about it, and whatever you decide, I'll accept. I am not going to be the reason two brothers lose each other. I have loved Taven my whole life. He's my family. If choosing me means you lose him and he loses me, then the math doesn't work. It's too much destruction for anyone to carry. Then what am I supposed to do? Figure out if your marriage is broken because of me, or if I showed up because it was already breaking. Those are different problems with different answers. He hung up. Jayhan stared at the phone screen until it went dark, and then he stared at the dark screen, and his scent cycled through grief and anger and something quieter, something that might have been clarity, until the apartment smelled like every emotion he had ever felt layered on top of each other in a single room. He did not go to Nile's apartment. He did not go to the studio. He sat on the kitchen floor with his back against the cabinet and waited for morning with the patience of someone who had finally run out of places to hide. Taven came home at 6 in the morning. He smelled like coffee and exhaustion, and the particular staleness of a man who had spent the night in a building designed for work, not rest. He found Jayhan on the kitchen floor, still sitting there, legs drawn up, head resting on his knees. "You didn't sleep," Taven said. "Neither did you." Taven lowered himself to the floor. He sat against the opposite cabinet, 3 feet of kitchen tile between them, and for the first time in months, he was not holding his phone. His hands were empty. His scent was empty too. The grapefruit and linen faded to almost nothing, like a man who had cried until even his pheromones were spent. "I drove around for 2 hours," Taven said. "Then I went to the office and sat at my desk and stared at a contract I didn't read." He paused. "Then I called my mother." "What did she say?" "She said I'd been losing you since March and that she'd been watching it happen and waiting for me to notice." His voice was rough. "She said the scent was a symptom, not the disease." Jayhan closed his eyes. Emmy Carver, who had always seen her sons more clearly than they saw themselves. She had always been the sharpest person in that family. "Your mother is right." "I know." The words came hard, dragged up from somewhere deep. "I know she's right. I know I've been absent. I know I chose the firm over you. I told myself it was temporary, that you understood, that the bond would hold while I built the career. And it held. It held so long I stopped checking. The bond held because I stopped feeling things." Jayhan opened his eyes. "I trained myself to go neutral, so you wouldn't have to deal with my scent shifting while you were on conference calls. I flattened myself so I'd fit into the space you left for me, which got smaller every month. And then someone walked through the door who actually paid attention, and my body remembered what it felt like to feel something, and it latched onto that like a man drowning grabs a rope." Taven flinched. "Is that what Nile is? A rope?" "Nile is a person who saw me. Not my scent. Not my condition. Me. The way you used to, before you decided that seeing me was less important than seeing the inside of a conference room. That's not fair. It's completely fair." They sat in the gray morning light, the kitchen cold around them, and the bond between them carried the first honest frequency it had transmitted in months. Not warmth, not love. Pain. Raw, unfiltered pain, transmitted through a connection that had been starving for real feeling. "Do you love him?" Taven asked. Jayhan considered the question with the seriousness it deserved. He did not flinch from it, did not deflect. For the first time, he let himself examine the thing that his body had been screaming about for months, held it up in the gray light, turned it over, looked at it from every angle. "I love what he represents," Jayhan said slowly. "Attention, presence, the feeling of being worth someone's time. But I don't know him the way I know you. I haven't built a life with him. I haven't chosen him 1,000 times in 1,000 small moments the way I chose you." He paused. "The scent isn't about Nile. It's about the gap you left. He just happened to be standing in it." Taven's breath shuddered. He pressed the heels of his hands against his eyes, the same gesture Jayhan made when the world was too much. a shared mannerism they had developed without noticing, the way bonded couples absorb each other's habits like water absorbing salt. "Can you fix it?" Jayhan asked. Not promise to fix it. Not schedule a time to discuss fixing it. Actually fix it. Actually come home. Actually see me. Actually choose this marriage with the same energy you chose that firm. What if it's too late? Then at least we'll know. But I don't think it's too late. I think the bond is still alive. I think we're still in here somewhere, under all the static. I just need you to come find me." Taven lowered his hands. His eyes were red. His scent was shifting, the starched linen softening, the bitter grapefruit sweetening by a fraction, and underneath both, something Jayhan had not smelled in a long time. The scent Taven had carried during their courtship, warm and certain and focused entirely on the person in front of him. "I'm sorry," Taven said. 2 words, stripped of qualifiers and explanations, offered without redirect to context or circumstances. Just the apology, bare and unarmored. Jayhan's scent responded before his words could. The mineral water warmed, the fig leaves softened, and for the first time in months the bass note shifted into something that was not neutral, not empty, but present, alive, uncertain, still carrying the ache of everything that had happened, but present in a way it had not been since Taven stopped coming home. The black currant did not appear. "Okay," Jayhan whispered. "Okay, start there." They did not embrace, did not kiss, did not perform any of the dramatic reconciliation gestures that the moment might have demanded in a different story. They sat on the kitchen floor 3 feet apart and looked at each other, really looked, with the rawness of 2 people who had been politely ignoring each other's existence and were now forced to reckon with what they had almost lost. Taven reached across the tile, palm up, open, waiting. Jayhan took his hand. The bond trembled. Then, slowly, like a radio finding its signal, it began to clear. Taven called Nile the next day. Jayhan sat in the living room and listened to the conversation, not eavesdropping but present because secrets had corroded this family enough and the rebuilding had to happen in the open. "I owe you an apology," Taven said into the phone. His voice was measured, but Jayhan could hear the effort it took. "Not for being angry. I had a right to be angry, but for what came before. For being so absent from my own marriage that my husband's body started looking for someone who would show up." Jayhan could not hear Nile's response, but he saw Taven's jaw work, saw the emotion he was holding back. "You didn't do anything wrong," Taven continued. "You fell for someone who was giving off every biological signal of availability because I had functionally abandoned him. That's not your fault. It's mine." A pause. Then Taven said, "No, I don't hate you. You're my brother. I just need time." He hung up, sat down beside Jayhan on the couch. His scent was shaky, grapefruit and linen with uneven edges, like fabric that had been pressed, but not perfectly. "That was hard," Taven said. "I know." He was crying. Jayhan said nothing. He leaned into Taven's side, and Taven's arm came around him, tentative, like a man relearning a gesture he had let his muscles forget. December turned to January. The rain did not let up. Jayhan finished his commission and delivered 11 fractured ceramic vessels to the Alberta Street Gallery, each one cracked by design, each one holding water anyway. The gallery owner arranged them on pedestals under warm lights, and strangers stood before them and felt something they could not articulate, a recognition of breakage as structure, of damage as intention. Taven came home at 6 every evening. He did not bring his laptop. He did not check his phone during dinner. He asked about the clay bodies Jayhan was testing, and listened to the full answer and asked follow-up questions that proved he had listened. He was clumsy at it, rusty, overcorrecting in ways that sometimes felt performative, but he kept showing up. And slowly, Awkwardly, like two people relearning a dance they once knew by heart, the rhythm between them began to rebuild. The bond responded. Jayhan felt it thicken, felt the static clear, felt the frequency between them tune to something warmer. He could sense Taven's emotions again, not just the broad strokes, but the specifics. The pride when Jayhan described a successful firing, the guilt that still lingered at the edges of everything, the tentative, fragile hope that was growing between them like a plant in poor soil, determined but not certain. Jayhan's scent responded too. The neutral base appeared less often. The apricot and clover returned when Taven made him laugh over dinner. The magnolia flared when Taven touched him with intention for the first time in months, a hand on the back of his neck while they watched the rain, a thumb tracing the line of his jaw while they lay in bed with the careful margin finally closed. But the black currant did not disappear entirely. It came in small, involuntary moments, when Jayhan drove past the street where Nile's apartment was, when he caught a trace of time in a restaurant and his pulse spiked before he could stop it. When Emmy called to say Nile had gone back to Denver for a while, to give everyone space, and Jayhan's grief scent cracked through the neutral for just a heartbeat before he pulled it back. He told Dr. Park about it at his January appointment. "The new scent hasn't fully resolved," he said. "It's quieter, but it's still there." "That's normal, Doctor," Park said. "Polymorphic scent signatures don't disappear on command. They fade as the associated emotional state loses intensity. If the underlying feeling is resolving, the scent will follow. But it takes time." "How much time?" "That depends on you, on whether the conditions that created it continue to exist." Jayhan thought about that for a long time after the appointment. The conditions that created it. Not Nile himself, but the absence Nile had filled. If Taven was filling that absence now, if the marriage was healing, then the conditions were changing. And the scent would follow. But feelings did not obey timelines. They did not resolve because the rational mind decided they should. Jayhan carried the fading black currant like a bruise that was yellowing but not yet gone, a reminder of how close he had come to losing everything, and also of the fact that his body had tried to tell him the truth, long before his mind was ready to hear it. In February, the gallery show opened. Taven was there, in the front row of folding chairs during the artist talk, his scent warm and certain and focused on Jayhan with an attention that made several people in the audience glance at him, drawn by the pheromone intensity of an alpha who was actively, deliberately choosing his mate in a public space. Jayhan spoke about the fractured vessels, about intentional breakage as a design principle, about the difference between damage that destroys and damage that becomes part of the structure. He did not look at the audience. He looked at his work, at the cracked surfaces that held water, at the proof that something could break and still function if the breaking was honest. After the talk, Taven found him near the refreshments table. "You were magnificent," Taven said. Jayhan looked at his husband. The courtroom armor was gone. The managing partner mask was gone. Just Taven, standing in a gallery with cracked ceramics and cheap wine, looking at Jayhan the way he had looked at him 3 years ago in this same neighborhood, when he had seen a bowl and understood the violence in it and wanted to know why. Jayhan's scent shifted, warm apricot, bright clover, the joy scent, pure and unguarded, filling the space between them. Taven inhaled, his eyes closed. When he opened them, they were wet. "There you are," he whispered. "I've been looking for you." "I've been right here," Jayhan said. "You just had to come find me." Spring arrived early in Portland that year. The cherry blossoms along the waterfront opened in the second week of March, and Jayhan walked beneath them with clay still under his fingernails and Taven's scent on his collar from the embrace that morning. The bond between them pulsed, warm and full and tuned to the particular frequency of a connection that had been tested and chosen and mended with intention. Nile came back to Portland in April. He met them for dinner at a restaurant downtown, and the three of them sat at a round table and navigated the strange, careful geography of a relationship that had nearly shattered and was now being rebuilt with the full knowledge of what each of them had almost lost. Nile looked better. The shadows were gone from under his eyes. He had put on weight in Denver, had started rock climbing, had a tan that suggested time spent outdoors rather than inside his own head. His scent was clean, wet slate and crushed time, grounding and even. When Jayhan looked at him across the table, his scent flickered. A ghost of black currant, faint, barely there, like a scar catching light at a certain angle. Nile noticed. Of course he noticed, but he simply smiled, small and sad and accepting, and passed the bread basket. "So," Nile said, his voice light, "Taven tells me you've got a show at the Alberta Gallery. How did the fractured vessels turn out?" "They held water," Jayhan said. "Of course they did." Taven's hand found Jayhan's under the table. His thumb traced the familiar line of Jayhan's wrist over the scent gland, a gesture that was simultaneously possessive and tender. Jayhan's scent warmed. Apricot, clover, home. The dinner was not easy. There were silences that lasted too long and jokes that landed wrong, and a moment when Nile reached for the same wine bottle as Jayhan, and their hands brushed, and everyone at the table felt the air change. But they stayed. They ate. They talked about the cherry blossoms and Nile's climbing trip and the new project at Taven's firm. They rebuilt the bridge one plank at a time, knowing it would never look the same as before, knowing the cracks were part of the structure now. When they said goodnight on the sidewalk outside the restaurant, Nile hugged Taven first. A long, fierce embrace between brothers who had nearly lost each other. Then he turned to Jayhan. "Can I?" Nile asked. Jayhan looked at Taven. Taven nodded, once with the deliberate calm of a man who trusted himself and his mate enough to allow what would have destroyed him 4 months ago. Nile hugged Jayhan briefly. The wet slate and time enveloped him for 3 seconds, and Jayhan's scent held. Apricot and clover. Joy. Not the dark, aching black current of longing, but the bright, honest warmth of someone who was glad to see a friend. Nile pulled back. His eyes searched Jayhan's face, and whatever he found there made him exhale. A long, releasing breath. The sound of a man setting down a weight he had been carrying for half a year. "I'll see you both next Wednesday," Nile said. "Family dinner, right?" "Family dinner," Taven confirmed. 7 o'clock. "Bring wine." "Something you actually like this time?" Jayhan asked. Nile grinned, lopsided, the same grin he had worn the day he first knocked on their door with a bottle in his hand, and no idea what was about to happen to all of them. "Always." He walked away down the wet sidewalk, his scent trailing behind him like a handprint on glass, and Jayhan watched him go and felt the ghost of black currant stir one final time, faint as a breath, quiet as a door closing gently in a distant room. Then it faded, and what remained was mineral water and fig leaves and warm apricot and clover and the steadying starched scent of the alpha beside him, the alpha who had come home, the alpha who had chosen to stay. Jayhan turned to Taven. "Take me home?" Taven laced their fingers together. "Always." They walked to the car through the spring rain, bonded and imperfect and honest, and Jayhan's scent told the truth the way it always had. But for the first time, the truth was something he chose. The end. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the story, tell me your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time.